welcome back to Scarecrow Joe's studio and returning to part 6 of the paper mache gargoyle sculpture. In the last segment, we did some more work on the sculpture, putting in some clay, sculpting in a little bit of details, the eyes, the teeth, that sort of thing. And then I started to show you, well, we put in the ridge, the spine back here. We put in that spinal ridge. We did some texturing on that, and then I started to show you some of the muscle structure on how to put in some muscle structure in the back if that's what you choose to do. Again, you know, look at reference pictures, reference photos of gargoyles, and you know, you can gain some inspiration on how to create some more detail so that your piece has a little bit more interest. In this segment, we're going to pick up where we left off. I did do a couple of things off camera. Primarily, I finished the back of it. I finished putting in the muscle structure in the back. And then off camera, like I told you I was going to do, I put in some skeletal structure in the wings. And I did that, I accomplished that by using toilet paper dipped in paper mache paste. I finished one wing, so that's kind of what it looks like on the back of this wing. And I did a little bit on the inside as well. I don't know if you could see that or not, but I did put some skeletal structure inside there. And then I almost forgot that I was going to leave this wing and show that on camera. And I did start laying on that toilet paper ridge there. So, and then I stopped because I remembered that I was going to show you how to do that. So that's where we'll pick up from. And then we'll carry on and do some more sculpting on the face and then the body as well. But before we move on, I just want to do a quick comparison here. I did have a comment on the part 5 of this tutorial from a viewer. And one of the comments was that in the beginning of the tutorial in part 1, I did say that I was only going to make this particular sculpture half the size as the other one. And the comment was that it's starting to look like it's the same size. So let's do a little bit of a comparison. Obviously, this is the finished piece right here. And I'm just going to move this piece in front of it. So just moving this piece in front of it, and you can see, well, hopefully you can see in the back here. So this one is taller. The body is pretty much the same height on both of these pieces at this point. The only real difference is, and here I'll just put them side by side. The only real difference is that, I mean, it is shorter altogether. The wings are smaller. These wings are pointed upwards a little bit more comparing to this sculpture right over here. His head is bigger. He's a lot more bulked out. This one's going to get bigger. Because we're going to continue some sculpting and it'll bulk it out as well. But yeah, they're about the same size. This one is wider, a little bit taller, but no big deal. So I just wanted to point that out, that yeah, that viewer, he's right. It's starting to look like they're going to be about the same size. So those things happen. Anyway, on that note, let's get back into this one. Alright, this is a pretty simple process. Very, very easy. You're going to need, obviously, some toilet paper. And what I do is I cut off 2 squares at a time. So, cut a few of them off. Basically, I have my 2 squares of toilet paper, and I just sort of roll it. And then once I have that rolled, I simply dip it into the paste. And with the paste on, using a method like this, it's best, or I find that it works best, if you have your paste a little bit thicker than a thin pancake-like batter consistency. And as you can see, those perforated marks in between the 2 squares, once I saturated that roll there that I made, it did come undone. at that perforated mark, which is completely fine. And basically what I do is I just I twist it a little bit and squeegee out just a little bit of the paste. So this is ready to apply. So on this wing over here, I'm just gonna start at the bottom. It doesn't really matter where you start. And I'm just laying on that wet roll of toilet paper or toilet tissue right on the edge of the wing. Now, if you don't want your bony structure or your skeleton structure of your wings to be as thick as this, then you'll use half the amount of the toilet paper rolled up. So basically, you'll just take those squares and you'll cut them right down the middle. That's a poor example, but then you would roll it, and that would make it a thinner piece of a coil for you. But yeah, that's all you do. It's really simple. Saturate it and just apply it right over on the edge. I have my other piece, and I'm just going to continue on laying it on right on the edge, right where I left off on the edge there. I'm just kind of connecting those two pieces together. So it's really, really, really simple. And I'm going to go ahead and finish this section. This other section here I have already done. So you can see all of that. I've already done all of that. So it's just this one section in here that I need to do, and then I can go ahead and, like I did with this other wing, I can apply the bony structure on top and inside the wing. So once again, connecting those pieces. And I'm just laying it right on the edge. Now this is very sticky, so once it dries, it will dry very, very hard, and it'll give you some more fine detail in your piece. Now, like I mentioned previously on a previous segment, the last segment, instead of using this technique, you could go ahead and you could use your clay the same way. You could take, little bits of coils of clay and do the same thing. I find this easier, and once you get to a point here, as you can see, I don't need that much here. I just need to connect those two pieces, so I'm just gonna rip or tear that little bit off. Going back to what I was saying, with this method, I find it easier and a lot quicker to deal with and to manage than coiling up bits of clay at a time and applying them. This goes so much quicker. Within like 10-15 minutes you're done with each wing. Now with the veining, or not really veining, the skeletal structure on the wings, it's the same thing. You just kind of figure out where you want to go with it and start applying to your wing. And you can do as much as you want. And again, get some reference photos out. If you want to look at some reference photos to try to figure out exactly where you want your skeletal structure, like I'm not putting all of this in as like one, where it's all going to be connected going all the way down. I'm just putting in a little bit here and there. But you could put in as much as you want. You can make it flow so that goes all the way down and connects, or you could do separate, which I have done on this wing over here. So again, completely up to you. You can also take, smaller pieces and kind of use, and do smaller bits, just, whatever you want, whatever your heart desires. So I'm going to go ahead and continue on with this and finish up this wing. I'm going to build up a little bit down here, and then on the edge, on this side of this edge here, on this wing, I'll put some in there. And then On the inside of this wing, I'm gonna put some in here as well, because I have one wing that's back a little farther than the other one. This other one is kind of leaning forward a little bit. You can't really see as much of the inside of this wing as you will on this other one, so I'm gonna really put in probably a bit more of that detail so it could be seen. Alright, so there you have it. I actually did go in and I put a few more of those coils of toilet paper on the inside of my wing there. I just felt it was kind of lacking a little bit, so if you could see that, that's the inside of the wing. You could also see part of the top of the wing here. And then on the other side, that's the inside of that wing. Top of the wing, and I'll turn this around so that you can see the back. So that's what it looks like right now. I'm happy with that. Use reference photos. You know, if you don't want these as thick as I have mine, use half the amount of toilet paper. Just take your square of toilet paper and just go down the center and roll it, and that's going to give you half the amount, or you can even go even less than that. And that's going to give you a very, very small coil, so you can make them a lot thinner than what I have on here. Do as many as you want. This is a very simple yet effective technique for adding a bit more detail in your wings, creating some skeletal structure in those wings. You can use clay, like I said, you can certainly use clay, but after this dries, it's going to shrink a little bit. It's not going to shrink as much as the paper mache clay does, but it will shrink up a little bit. And it'll stay on there. It'll be very, very hard, very solid, and it's going to adhere really, really well. Alright, we're going to leave these wings here, but we are going to come back to them, because I do want to create some points on the ends of the wings here using my paper mache clay. But I wanted to move on for a few minutes here to the face and just kind of looking at it and building up some features, making some areas more pronounced with using my paper mache clay. I don't want to widen the head or the face very much. I don't want it to be any bigger than what it is. But a lot of these features in here, I do want to apply some more clay and sculpt in some more details. So again, by doing that, it's best to get the same amount of clay and do both sides of the face at the same time, so that if symmetry is your goal, then you'll have about the same amount of clay for each side that you're working on. For instance, I want to build up more in the brow area. So if I have about the same amount of clay for each side, I kind of want to peak. If you peak your eyebrows, so if you bring your eyebrows to a peak or a point, it gives it a completely different look than if you round them. So by peaking your eyebrows or making them into a point at the top, gives it a little bit more of a menacing look to it. So I'm just going to go around the entire eye here on both sides, and I'm just applying little bits of clay. Now, you know, I've said this before and I'll continue to say this as a reminder. Paper mache clay will shrink, so if you want areas to be very, very pronounced, you're going to want to apply thicker amounts of clay than you think you would. in those areas. So I think that's a pretty good starting point. That's what it looks like right now. I probably will have to go in and do a little bit more modification. But I'm going to take my medium-sized artist paintbrush here, and just one at a time I'm going to go in with my paintbrush, applying a little bit of pressure and just kind of smoothing it in, blending it into that dry clay. And then I can go in and shape these areas using my sculpting tools. For these smaller areas in there, it's best to use a smaller artist brush to get in there and kind of smooth and blend into those areas. So I added a little bit more clay around these areas down underneath the eye. I can already tell that this eye is thicker than that one, so in that area. So I'm just going to go in with a little bit more clay here and put a little bit more clay in that area. Just try to make it a little bit more symmetrical. And another really cool kind of a sculpting tool to have is one of these, it's a flat plastic rounded edge to it, and it's really great for getting into some of these areas, crevices, and blending in that clay. So if you have something like that, that would work really great for this. Or, you know, one of these. This is my fallback little sculpting tool that I like to use. But I'm just going in at this point and I am smoothing this clay even further as usual, and shaping it a little bit more as well. Right, so you could probably really see the difference in the two eyes here. This is the one that I went in with my sculpting tools and I smoothed it out and shaped it into the shape that I wanted. So I really made sure that I had my peak up here. Comparing this eye now to this one is a lot more round, whereas I kind of squared the bottom part off here instead of leaving it round. And then I kind of did the same thing on the side. And to me, it just kind of gives it a little bit more of a menacing look. Round shapes, you know, if you have shapes that are round around eyes, they're going to not give it so much of a menacing look, in my opinion. So after I've smoothed that in with my tool and shaped it just around some of these edges in here, I'm just going in with a little bit more paste, and I really want to blend those areas in where the wet clay meets that dry clay, so it you can't see any seams when it dries. And I'll do the same thing up here and right around inside the eye as well, where the wet clay meets that dry clay. Now I'm going to shape this eye ridge here the same way that I shaped this other one. While I was doing this and shaping this eye, looking at it head on, I noticed that the other eye on this area was a little bit more bulked up in comparison to the other eye over here on this side. So I'm just going in and this is something, I mean, you're gonna have to take your time on this if you want it very, very symmetrical and for both sides to match. You know, I don't think you're ever gonna get it perfectly symmetrical. You can certainly try, but you will have to go back and forth. So you will look at it from different angles and go back and forth to each eye to see where you might need to build up a little bit more clay, where you need to shape it so that it looks more like the other eye. But take your time on the face. It's the focal point of your piece. So really, really take your time, have some patience when you're laying in clay and sculpting in the details in the face. Alright, and then what I'm doing now is with my flat sculpting tool, I'm just going in these areas here and kind of redefining so that I have more of a, just a little bit more of a pronounced or separation of an area here. The other thing that I think I want to do is I want to build up a little bit more clay on this ridge right here. So right over the ridge that's already there, I'm just taking some of my clay here. I'm kind of just forming it into a point. And I'm just putting it right over that existing ridge. Go in again with the paste. And I think the other thing that I want to do here is I'm taking basically two balls of clay, making sure they're about the same size here. And I think I want to build up just a little bit more bulk right above in here. When you're laying in clay and you're trying to figure out where you want to put more clay in, make it more pronounced, if you don't like it, no big deal, because before it dries you can always remove that clay and do something else. But to me, this is the fun part here, just trying to figure out where else I want to bulk up in some of these areas, see how it looks, and just kind of go from there. So once again, I'm just going to go in and using my sculpting tool here, I'm smoothing it even more and forming it or shaping it to where I want it to be or how I want it to look. I'm just sort of moving clay around, laying on some clay in areas where I think it needs a little bit more detail to lend it a bit more interest, and I'm just kind of moving it around, smoothing it in, moving it around, forming it, shaping it, and how I want it to be. Kind of want that to be in a little point right there. Again, I think it makes him look a little bit more menacing. And I'm really just going to take the time to form this, shape it, smooth it. Okay, I sort of like that. I bulked up a little bit here, just a little tiny little bit, peaks. And then I bulked up the center point here. Down in here, I'm probably going to end up losing some of this right here in the center where I kind of pointed it a little bit. Not a big deal, because I am going to put a nose in there. I was debating on whether I was going to put a nose in there or not, but I think it needs it. Let me show this to you from a different angle here. There's that side. And then there's that side. So he really has this really cool pronounced like forehead and the eyes, eyebrow area. I like that. It is going to shrink. Also, when you're doing this, think about texture. Do you want to put some texture in? You certainly can. You know, I think it might be kind of cool to, let's see, just kind of put some marks in here. Let's look at it this way. And again, if you don't like it, you can always remove it, or if you like that, you know, what you've done, but you put in some texture that you're kind of like, yeah, I don't know about that texture, go back and smooth it over, not a big deal. Use your creativity, your imagination, and you should be good to go. You know, build up, experiment. Lay on some clay. If you don't like it, remove the clay. Lay on some more clay. If you don't like that, lay on some more clay. I'm going to move on now. I want to do a little bit here in the jaw area. So I think I'm going to start at the bottom here. I just want to put just a little bit more clay around those areas here. So I'm just little bits of clay, just sort of adding it on. I don't want to lose my point that I have here for the jaw because I like that. And by doing this, actually, it will help to it's just another additional layer of clay right around those teeth that are inserted. So that's just going to help it hold those teeth in place even better. So again, I'm just kind of looking at it at all angles. Want to make sure that I have it pretty symmetrical. And I'm going to go in again with my paste and my brush and smooth it all out. So I'm just picking up my sculpture, leaning it back so that I could get a better angle and looking underneath. Making sure that I'm blending in all of that clay into the dry clay that I have on here so that there aren't any seams. Super important to pay attention to those areas because once it dries, it's going to hold that texture and people are going to see those lines and it'll show through in your paint. So you don't want that. You want to take the time to make sure that you are smoothing all of that in, blending that wet clay into that dry clay. Okay, so once I got that all smoothed over, I was kind of looking at it and the teeth, especially the bottom teeth there, kind of started to look a little too small or a little wimpy to me. I didn't have any bigger teeth that I had formed previously with my paper mache clay and let dry, and I really wanted to move on. So of course, you know, I had all of these excess teeth, and this is a Sculpey clay, oven baked Sculpey clay, and I inserted 2 more bottom fangs in there. So hopefully you guys can see that. I kind of had them I wanted to have them protrude out. So they are kind of protruding out. Bring that over so you could see that. And I like that. Still leaves me some room to put a tongue in there, right in there. But I have a little bit more interest as far as those teeth are concerned. But to make sure that these are going to be held in place, because they're not paper mache teeth, I'm just taking little bits of my paper mache clay. First of all, obviously I pressed them into that wet clay that I just applied and smoothed out. So now I'm taking little balls of my paper mache clay and I'm going to just put it right on top and make sure that I have that underneath on the bottom too. Go in with my small paintbrush and smooth that in, and then with my sculpting tool I want to blend it in. This is going to make sure that these polymer clay, Sculpey clay teeth will stay in place, will be locked in place with this paper mache clay and paste. Alright, before I carry on, and I just want to give you try to give you a closer look at that jaw. I really like how that lower jaw is protruding out, and so are those teeth. I kind of like that effect. Let me show you the other side here. And I think by adding those 2 additional fangs on the bottom makes it look a little better anyway. So I'm happy with that. But before I carry on and do anything with the upper part of this jaw, because I don't like the way that looks, I have decided that I am going to put a nose in there, so I'm going to work on that. If you have a reference photo that you want to use, now's the time to do so. And I'm going to be honest with you right now, I'm just kind of winging it. Not quite sure what kind of nose I want to put on there, but I do know that I do want one in there. So I'm going to start out by just taking a ball of my clay and basically just kind of putting it right in there. Just want to kind of form it a little bit. I don't think I want it any bigger than that. But I am going to go in now with, once again, some paste and my brush. I really am starting to like the way that the face is turning out. It's starting to come to life a little bit more. And you'll feel that too once you start really getting in there and doing some details with your sculpt, putting that in there. All right, and I think what I want to do is kind of try to make some flared, like a flared type nostril type effect in here. So we'll see. For right now, I'm just taking my fingers and inserting like nostril holes in there. Take my smaller brush. One thing that I'll tell you guys right now, one thing, I am not the best, I'm not the best at sculpting in noses on any kind of a creature. It's, I don't know, I always get to that point and I'm just like, oh man, I'm not good at this at all. But I want them kind of flared, and this is where reference pictures are really going to help you out here. So, and this is where, you know, if you have trouble with certain areas of anatomy, you know, whether it's like creature anatomy or animal anatomy or human anatomy, it's always best to find some kind of reference photo to go off of. So I'm starting to like that a little bit better. I don't know. I'm just going to play with it a little bit and see where it kind of takes me. I did achieve what I think is some flared nostrils. It looks okay. I'm again, guys, you know, I'm not, this is my, one of the things that I struggle with is creating noses. So practice. What's helpful when creating like the actual nostril area, you could take the end of a paintbrush and stick it in there, and you can create those nostril areas a lot better with just the end of a paintbrush here. So I'm just going to go in here and I mean, I can spend hours just on trying to, you know, sculpt in a nose that I'm happy with, but I don't have that kind of time. You probably don't have that kind of time either. So, you know, you got to get to a point in your sculptures, in any area of your sculpture, where you're just like, okay, you know what? I just gotta call that done. I gotta call that area done, and then, you know, you get to a point in your entire sculpture where you have to call that done as well. So let's go ahead. I don't know. I think I'm gonna call that done. Give you a look at side profile here a little bit. There's some areas where I do need to go in and smooth it out. But other than that, I think I'm happy with it. Again, for the purpose of this video, I'm not going to just continue on and try to sculpt in more and more details in one specific area. But you know, when you're making your own sculptures, I mean, you're definitely, you're gonna spend some time in these areas. More time than what I'm spending right now, for sure. Up here, before it starts drying, and it already has started to dry, I kind of want to go in and press in, redefine that brow. So that's something else to keep in mind. Because as we're layering on more clay and building up clay in certain areas, you're smoothing in, you're going back, you're smoothing in, and you know, quite possibly disrupting some clay in some of the other areas, and you'll have to go back and redefine. All right, I think I'm good with that. Again, let's check out the side profile. And I'm gonna move on. I want to do something else here with this top of the mouth. So I think I'm just gonna I'm gonna do like a thin coil of clay. So I've got a bit of clay here. I'm just gonna roll it into a coil. Just kind of see how that's going to take shape and look. So just bulking it up a little bit around in the mouth, and then going ahead again, my paste, and just right above in here where that nose kind of meets that lip, I'm just gently going in and applying the paste and a little bit of pressure, because I want to have a definition of where the nose is and then that lip area is. And that paste with the paintbrush, that's really going to help. And then again, using some of my sculpting tools, going in and smoothing it out and shaping it. One thing that I wished I would have done with the top teeth is made them bigger. But I mean, at this point it is what it is. I could, if I really wanted to, and I actually should have done this before applying more clay to that top jaw or lip area, is bulking up just right over those fangs that I have in there, going in with some more paper mache clay and just putting it over right over those fangs and bulking them up, making them bigger. But it's okay. Again, you know, if I weren't filming this for a tutorial, I would probably just let this dry and then go back and put more clay, try to bulk up those teeth a little bit more. It's going to be what it's going to be. It's still going to turn out pretty cool, I think. I do like it. But, I mean, it's a process, you know. You gotta get in there and start sculpting, basically, and see where your sculpture wants to take you. It's a journey. Think of it as a journey. All right, let's take a look at it now from different angles. There's the profile. And you can see what I mean now that I've bulked up that area. The upper fangs have kind of gotten lost in there. But it's okay. Again, you could go in and let this dry and you can bulk up your teeth even more. But if you're going to put a tongue in here, keep that in mind, that you can, you know, leave that room in here for a tongue. Alright, one last thing that I think I want to try in here and just see how it looks. Because this area in here, I just believe it needs a little bit more detail. It would probably be better if I actually did this with some toilet paper, like I did with the wings back here. But since I have my clay out, I'm going to go ahead and I made a thin coil, a little bulky in the center, and then I'm tearing it apart. I'm leaving that bulk in the center. And I just want to go where that nose is and just sort of build up right under the eye. Just lay that coil in there to where it kind of meets the mouth. And this side's a little bit longer, not a big deal. I'm going to go in and just put a little bit of clay on this side. That's going to lend it even more interest. I'm just adding a little bit more detail here and there, and you know, you'll do the same. You will absolutely do the same with your gargoyle. Yeah, I think that's good. I think I like that. So I put that coil in there, thinner up here towards where it gets into the corner of the eye, and just sort of blending those areas in there with my brush. And gonna do the same on the other side. Alright, let's take a look at this now from different angles. I like that. I think that lends that just a little bit more interest instead of it being just this flat and no real definition in between, or build up or details in between the eye and the mouth and the nose. So yeah, I do like that. I like that a lot. Just need to do a little bit of blending, but other than that, I think that's pretty good. I like that right there. That's pretty good. Alright guys, I really intended on part 6, which is the segment that we're in right now, to be the final segment on completing the sculpt. However, once again, it's starting to get very lengthy. I could speed this up and plow through it and give as much detail as I possibly can, but there is so much work still to be done on the sculpture. For one, I want to put some paper mache clay points on the wings here to make them more interesting instead of just flat looking things, and we did accomplish some adding more interest in them by applying the you know, the kind of the skeletal structure in there, which is great. But I think by adding some points with the paper mache clay, sculpting those on, it's going to be even better. Pretty much done, I think, with the face. So I spent a lot of time on this segment on the face, and it's the focal point of your piece, so you are going to spend a lot of time on the face. I got to a few areas where I just wasn't really happy with it, the teeth in particular, and then when I applied this top ridge here to my mouth, these teeth really kind of shrunk, got even smaller, or started to look even smaller. So at this point, because there's so much more detail that I want to do, I want to bulk out these horns here, put in a little bit more detail into the ears, and really refine and sculpt in the body of this gargoyle. It's just going to take way too long. If I rush through it, you won't really see the sculpting process. And if I do that, just rush through it, it's just not doing the sculpture justice. It's not doing the complete tutorial from start to finish any kind of justice. So I'm going to concentrate on doing one more segment on sculpting and finishing the sculpt in the next segment, which will be part 7, and then part 8 we'll go ahead and we're going to paint and then seal this thing and finish it off. Thank you for sticking in there with me. Thank you for being so patient. I hope that you've learned some things, that I've showed you some different things along the lines of going through this process. If it doesn't work for you, if you think, oh, well, I could do this instead, you have a different idea in your head, go for it. It's all about the creative process, and honestly, in my opinion, you never know what's going to work unless you actually go ahead and try it. So I encourage you to do so. But that's going to be a wrap on this segment. We'll catch you real soon in the next one, which we are definitely going to finish up the sculpt. But until then, as always, I thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.